Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 191 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast that is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me, as always, is the very lovely Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
I am in a surprisingly good mood considering the state of the world.
Well, I mean, a good mood hopefully does not need an excuse.
Well, true, but one of the reasons for my good mood is because I had a board of directors meeting yesterday, and I'm one of those people who hates meetings. If it can be an email, by all means, let's do that instead. But we're required to have these meetings at least once a year, and I budgeted an hour because I don't like things to last much longer than that. And everyone was happy with the results, and we came in under time. And so when was the last time you had a meeting that ran short and everyone was happy?
As I said when you mentioned this before we started started the show, I'm pretty sure your alarm's going to ring and you're going to be late for high school. It was all a dream.
Yeah, it's been forever since I've had one of those naked in high school dreams.
Oh, yeah, those. It's been a while as well. But yeah, the naked in high school or the exam gets plopped down in front of you and you're like, what is this?
I've not had one of those, but I've had something similar where I'm in college and I realized that I haven't attended class all semester and I now have to take the final on it or fail.
Mm-hmm. I think it was fairly recently I got the dream where the phone rang and I had 2 hours to get to a local seaport and catch a boat for 2 weeks, and just wait a second, I don't think I do that anymore. It's kind of similar to the dream where you're bedding down with a young lady and you're like, "Ooh, this is going extremely well. Ooh, I like this." And I go, "But wait a second, I'm a happily married man." And then I wake up and go, "It was just a dream. It was allowed." But
another reason I'm feeling very well is that this is my birthday week, and in fact, by the time our listeners hear this, if you're a patron, you're hearing it on my birthday. Wish me a happy birthday. But otherwise, if you're not a patron and we still love you, it means you've missed my birthday and you need to wish me a happy belated birthday.
Well, speaking of such things, Erin.
Yes, I have a suspicious package here, and it's got a weight to it, and I didn't order it, and it's from a place titled BHQ, which sounds very familiar.
What could those letters stand for?
I don't know. I mean, do you think I should call the bomb disposal unit? Should I just throw it away?
You definitely throw it away.
Of course not. I'm going to open it. I like packages.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
I love that
What's
movie so much.
Boker. And I'm undoing the cellophane.
Your detective skills should already have picked up.
I'm sorry, I'm going through tunnel. Arbor. I have no idea how that sounded to you.
I mean, I think it'll come across beautifully.
Okay.
I used to be so good at doing the cell phones dropping packets, which you don't seem to do anymore. All
right, so it's a black cardboard sleeve that says Boker. It's an umlaut O, and the umlaut means add an E to it. B-O-E-K-E or Boker or something, whatever. Anyway, I
say Boker.
I remove the sleeve, and it is a black metal tin. It's like, it makes me wonder how many of these sort of nesting doll packages there are.
There's quite a few.
Okay. There it, and it's a pretty, that kind of titanium rainbow oil spill thing. Mermaid knife. It's got a very decent weight to it. Yeah.
I mean, it is both gorgeous and flashy and a little bit silly, but then like as silly as it looks, it's also a really, really serious knife. Like,
Yeah.
And so I thought Erin Paulette absolutely needed to have it.
Oh, I agree. I was going to get one on my own, but then you told me not to. But yeah, this is my aesthetic all over it.
It is the weapon of a Jedi.
Something more civilized age. Oh, and it slices through paper beautifully. It passes the Rambo test.
Again, Oddball sent this to me, and I was just like, "Oh, Oddball, God, that is just reeks of gas station knife." But then suddenly it's one of those. Oh, wait a second. What if like somebody made a gas station knife and was very serious about it?
Well, if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be Boker.
Exactly. I saw it's Boker. Wait a second. They don't make trash knives. So there, Erin, you could also be one with the mermaids. My daughter keeps saying, "Yeah, but that's my knife," and I'm like, "No, it is not. You are not quite up there for the fairly large, because it's like 3 3/4 inch blade, and it's a hefty blade as well."
I'm surprised at how much handle there is. Oh my gosh, that's a very solid grip.
Yeah. Oh, it feels really good. Feels really good in the hand. And of course, also it's got the mermaid tail for the flipper. So also it kind of forms a nice little knuckle guard. So I mean, your hand is just in there. So yeah, I really dig this knife. Like the only thing that it kind of trashes itself on is that the mermaid on the spine probably would wreck it if you're trying to cut through stuff, just because she'll create friction. But for 90% of your slashing stuff, and just for generally barbecue knifing.
Oh gosh, isn't it horrible when a lady provides friction? Some of us like some friction there, Weer'd.
I'm not touching that.
So I'm looking at our outline here, Weer'd, and it actually looks kind of light. I mean, we can like get this done in 15 minutes and go home.
I think we can. I mean, it'll be 15 minutes for us. But yeah, you mentioned, of course, the whole like state of the world, and I really wanted just to note that at the time of this recording, we're recording this on March 7th. Ukraine is still a sovereign nation and not a part of Russia, which I am extremely surprised on. I thought for sure that the Russians were going to roll over them and capture the land, if not the hearts of the people. I didn't foresee that happening, but boy, the Ukraine people are really kicking some butt. Like they're fighting well above their weight class, from all that I'm seeing. And I really wanted to congratulate them on that. My hat's off to that. That's very impressive, but also it ties very much into the Second Amendment. I'm thinking it's one of those like, yeah, screw, semi-auto rifles with 30 round magazines. Like, we need javelins. We need javelins. We need Molotovs. Claymores would be nice.
I'd settle for a law.
So yeah, this for you Second Amendment activists out there everywhere. Like, this is a prime example of like, oh, why do you need all of that stuff? Well, because Russia tried to take Ukraine, and so far they still haven't been able to do it. And at this point in time, I mean, I'm not a military. I don't know even
anything.
Yeah, I'm not an anything. So I am not an expert in military tactics or predicting a military outcome. But boy, this seemed like something that should have been over with a long time, like days ago, and it's still going on. And I think I don't know if they're going to be able to. The Russians are going to be able to capture Ukraine after all of this. So I don't know how many of our listeners are big fans of Warhammer 40K. For the rest of you, you're not going to understand this. But I don't know about you, but I'm getting really strong Cadian vibes about this entire war.
Okay, brief thing. So in the Warhammer 40k universe, there's a unit called the Cadian Guard, and they aren't Space Marines. They're just normal human infantry of, the Imperium of Man. And they were invaded by one of these really, really nasty alien species, and they held out, and they held out, and they held out valiantly, and the crust of the planet actually cracked from the war, but the people, the Cadian Guard, did not stop fighting. And so even though the planet was lost, there's a statement that Cadia still stands, because you've got the people of Cadia who are still fighting. And so much like America is not really a soil, but it's a concept, it's the will of the people, they're saying the same thing about Cadia. And so, Cadia stands is a rallying cry, as well as the planet broke before the Guard did. And I'm so getting that vibe. I absolutely hope the Ukrainians win. And it seemed like it was a pretty slim hope a couple of weeks ago. Now it seems like, hey, they've really got a good chance. But regardless, even if their country is totally trashed, Ukraine will still stand, because the Ukrainian people still stand.
Mm-hmm. And not for anything. I mean, certainly my wife was, and she's not alone, was super concerned about this being a World War type event, is that Putin was going to roll into Ukraine and just not stop. He was going to secure Ukraine and then move on to Poland or, some other Eastern European nation and just keep going and just capture more and more of the world, a la, Hitler during World War II. And certainly Ukraine has taken the wind out of those sails. And again, most of this is with just guerrilla warfare. And so this is a key reason why we need to have a Second Amendment.
And tractors.
and tractors.
I've lost count of how many videos I've seen of farmers just hooking up tractors and hauling away, APCs and troop carriers and light tracked vehicles. And it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really hard to get those people to disarm when you've got some farmers who are better equipped than some, police units.
Xander laughs in Farmer.
Oh, I'm sure he's loving this.
Yes. So again, congratulations to Ukraine. Hopefully that will continue on. Maybe next week we will be talking about Putin's retreat. So, but now shifting gears, this is a super duper interesting story, and it'll be very, very interesting to see where this goes. And it has very, very loose ties to the Second Amendment, but this is absolutely a story that is a non-firearms company being treated like a firearms company. And
hey, didn't I predict something like this a couple of weeks ago?
You did, and honestly speaking, I kind of scoffed at you at that because, this is nothing new. There was just this weird precedent has been created. People talk about the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which is the act that prevents gun companies from being sued when their product is being used illegally. And the anti-gunners hate it because they had this great little system where they would sue gun companies over stuff that is no fault of their own, and the gun companies would have to defend against it, and the gun companies would always win. Either they would settle or the case would be dismissed, but either way it would cost them money. And meanwhile, the gun companies, the anti-gun groups, it would cost them practically nothing, filing fees.
The process is the punishment.
Exactly. And it was a brilliant move on behalf of the anti-gunners because there has not been, as far as I know, a single lawsuit against a gun company where a criminal did something illegal with a gun, where the gun company lost in the court of law. There has been many, many cases where the gun company, like Remington's insurance group, that just recently happened, has paid off the other side to dismiss the case, but that was out of court. And there's been many cases like Lucky Gunner where the case was dismissed as frivolous, but there's never been an instance where the anti-gun people have won. And either way, it costs very, very little for the anti-gun side, especially if they aren't expecting to win. And it costs a huge amount of money for the pro-gun side. People have been thinking like tens of millions of dollars for Remington. And I know Lucky Gunner, they were only really in court for a matter of months before it was dismissed. It was dismissed very, very early in a pretrial hearing, and they spent over $250,000 spooling up for that case. But this is nothing new. It's the idea that Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act grants a special protection. No, it just clarifies what everybody else does, or at least so I thought, so this case comes out of Arizona, and a young girl was killed in a traffic accident in Phoenix, or near Phoenix. It was in Phoenix in 2015. And the family is suing, what is it? Fiat Chrysler, I believe, is the actual company, but they're suing Jeep because the vehicle that struck them was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and that particular vehicle, it was a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. That vehicle had an option for the collision detection system, and the statement is that if this vehicle had the collision detection, when it got close to the other car, rather than striking it, the vehicle would have locked up the brakes and stopped it. And this has not yet gone to trial. And again, this is something for us to watch, because what they're saying is because Jeep, Chrysler, Fiat didn't equip all their vehicles with this collision detection system, they are liable for this young girl's death. And so far, it's just the Fiat Chrysler has asked for it to be dismissed, but the Arizona Supreme Court has said that no, they will allow it. They're not saying that it's a good case or that one side has an advantage. All they are saying is that this is not a frivolous lawsuit.
So now we have a car company being treated like a firearms company. Somebody did something bad, and, well, I'm not going to say instead of punishing them, because I'm sure that the driver who is involved in the negligent homicide is facing charges of some sort. But in addition, now we're going to sue the car company.
Yes.
I
friggin'
called it.
I mean, you absolutely did. And like I said, it will create what happens with this, especially given that Fiat Chrysler is a massive multinational corporation, and they are, unlike Remington, still very much in business. Hopefully they will do, like, as we were talking about, it was bad what happened with Remington's insurance companies, because even though it's not a legal precedent, it is not an admission of guilt. It is simply they are paying. It still emboldens the anti-gun forces and says, hey, this is a thing that we can do. And so it will be interesting to see if they do the right thing, which I would say is fight it and point out the fact that it's an option. This is not a piece of equipment that was required at the time or currently. There are vehicles that have this system, and this does exist, but it's not required like, say, backup cameras are now on new vehicles. Or, I mean, I don't even know all the different safety. I mean, obviously seat belts are required, and I don't know if the little seatbelt warning beep thing that's now suddenly cropped up. My wife just got a new Mazda, and that thing, like, literally, it has conditioned us. We sit in the car and we buckle our seatbelt, and then we turn it on, because otherwise it grouses at us until we have fully buckled in.
Airbags.
Yep, airbags. You know, all of these equipment are required by law. So if this vehicle had not been sold with seatbelts or airbags or a backup camera, that would be illegal. But now that, but this collision detection system is not yet considered a standard safety equipment that is required by law, but they are saying that they should be held liable because they didn't include it.
So what's going to happen, I imagine, is even if a law isn't passed to require this, I imagine now that Jeep is going to start making them standard, which does mean that prices are going to go up. And there will be now more people who cannot afford a Jeep because of this more expensive mandatory safety item.
Honestly, with the chip shortage, too, you have the interesting angle of this could be something that would be further bottlenecked. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the auto world looks like when we get out of the backside of this chip shortage, which will eventually end, because they've got cars all over the various auto manufacturing areas all over the world. They just don't have all the bits and bobs inside of them, and they're just sitting there waiting on parts. And so it'll be interesting to see if there'll just be a whole lot of 2021 vehicles going up for sale, or 2021 vehicles being rebranded as 2023 or 2024 vehicles. But I also foresee the U.S. government going through another safety update where this collision system is required.
So, talking about people who aren't happy. England isn't happy again. So, just to bring you up to speed here, there were a series of tragic shootings in the United Kingdom in 1987, Hungerford Massacre, which you may not have heard of, and the 1996 Dunblane school shooting, which you likely have heard of. And that resulted in the very, very strong gun control in the United Kingdom. And, you know, as everyone tells us, once you pass gun control, you don't have any more murders, right? Wrong! In fact, this Plymouth shooting, which happened in August of last year, is actually not the first one since those gun control laws. There was one in 2010. That would be the Cumbria shooting, in which a taxi driver killed 12 people and injured 11 others. And he killed those people with a 12-gauge double-barreled shotgun and a .22 caliber bolt-action rifle. And here we are now in, it happened in 2021, and we have another person who shot and killed 5 people and injured 2 more with a shotgun. We all know where this is going, but Weer'd, please tell us how England is going to solve this murder problem.
How England is going to solve this uniquely American problem, as the Bloomberg paid lobbyists like to say. They would like to ban, well, I think the law specifically says all shotguns, but they're going to try to ban shotguns. Let's see. Pump action shotguns. And so, yeah, they're calling for more gun control. So when you hear people like Joe Biden or Beto O'Rourke say that, we're going to, round up your AR-15s and that will solve it. Well, first up, this is a legit mass shooting in England where they have the gun permits and mental health evaluations and all that. And then they're severely limited on the guns that they can have. This is a pump action shotgun, which is one of like the most anti-gun area friendly thing. I mean, I've got a Mossberg 590 and there's just absolutely no restrictions on it whatsoever. It's got a bayonet lug on the end of it, and I stick a big old knife on it sometimes because it's hilarious. And all of a sudden now they're coming for this. And so this is a fine example of how anti-gunners will never, ever be happy. We have England. They have passed the widespread ban on firearms, and now they are doing all of these crackdowns on knives, on clubs. There's talk about cracking down on chemicals because of the acid attacks. And now, again, they're trying to further restrict what guns people in England can own.
And I do want to point out that prior to this, it wasn't easy to own a shotgun to begin with. Mm-mm. Because you needed to have a shotgun certificate. And there are very strict regulations involving what kind of shotguns you can and cannot have. So, for example, if it has a detachable magazine or a large fixed magazine, by large, I assume they mean more than 2, requires a Section 1 firearm certificate. And I don't know if there are the storage laws like they have for rifles, but I imagine so. It's not easy to own a firearm in the United Kingdom. There are already lots and lots of laws, and those aren't sufficient. Now we need more. And now, as you say, because of the acid attacks, well, now they're going to start cracking down eventually, one would imagine, on household cleaners. Because, bleach can be used if it gets in the eyes to blind people. Mm-hmm. Bleach is also used to clean your bathrooms and kitchens. Okay, y'all may not know this, but have you ever wondered why your butter knives have a rounded tip? It's because, and I'm pretty sure this was in England, there was worry that someone at one of these state dinners might try to stab the king. So they rounded off the tips of all of their knives. And
also in England, there is a lot of, I'm trying to remember if it's a law, but I've certainly seen images of England-friendly knives, whether it just be they're friendly or if they're required by law, but they're kitchen knives that do not come to a sharp point. They have a rounded off end, which would be infinitely infuriating to me because that sharp point is very useful in cooking. So yeah, this is a never ending battle. And again, the victims of this, there was no one to defend against it. I mean, even the police are, well, I don't know about actually. The police used to be frequently unarmed in England, but of course, with all the violence that has been going on, the unarmed local bobby has becoming more and more rare in England anyway.
So crime is on the rise, and the famously unarmed British bobby are now decked out in tack gear, and not just pistols, but I frequently see them with what looks like rifles or submachine guns.
Oh, yeah.
But no citizen needs a gun for self-defense. Ignore the increasingly militarized police. You don't need a firearm.
Well, shall we shift gears to a more uplifting story?
Yes. My good mood is evaporating, so let's get me back into the happy zone.
Yes, well, we have a mutual friend who has a PHLster Enigma holster system, and they were talking about that, and I'd heard some other people talking about this this system. We talked about this holster system in way back in episode 129, and we sat down with John and Sarah Hopman of PHLster to talk about this, what I think is an absolute revolutionary system in concealed carry. And I realized, you know what? I want to talk to them. I wanted to see how they went from being a small holster company to becoming someone who would meet a massive market need and what adaptations they needed to do. I am absolutely pleased to welcome back to the show John and Sarah Hopman of PHLster Holsters. And we talked to you guys last at the launch of the PHLster Enigma. And, I just listened to the State of the Union speech. And so I thought, hey, what is the state of PHLster Holsters? What's going on with you guys?
What? Wow. Okay. So I was trying to think of a funny way to tie that into the State of the Union, but I haven't watched it and I haven't been to a retirement home lately. So
I mean, I would hope that this is where the similarity
to the State of the Time
to the State of the Union ends. But seriously, I mean, how is the company doing?
Really well. It's been it's been 14 months since we launched the Enigma, I think, approximately.
Really? Wow.
Maybe a little more, maybe 15. And it has been an insanely wild ride. We're still kind of recovering, like, psychologically and emotionally from what this year did. And there are going to be times during this discussion where we both sound very tired and like, butter spread over too much toast. And, there were times where we, forgot the sound of trees and the taste of bread, and we're, out in the depths of this. So there are going to be times where we sound a little worn thin. However, I don't want that to eclipse the immense gratitude that underlies all of that, because it has been absolutely amazing. And we are thrilled to have the opportunity to live up to everyone's expectations of us, even if that means not sleeping very much anymore.
Yeah, I think recovering is a very generous word for what we're doing. But we're hanging in there.
Active recovery.
Yeah, we're it's a process. We're hanging in there. I think John really said it well. Like, we are incredibly grateful for both for the opportunities that we've had, but also for just the circumstances that have allowed us to succeed. It's been incredible. It's beyond what we ever expected to happen. I remember before we launched the Enigma, we were like scraping to afford 200 and some units for the first launch. And we're like, well, I think we can afford it. And, I think we'll sell them eventually. They might not all sell right away, but
it's a big investment. We've never sold, that's as many as we've sold of any other product in a month, Yeah.
And we thought, okay, well, we'll scrimp and we'll save and we'll build up some inventory. And if we don't sell them all, no big deal. And then we watched our website just go blah. And the first
do you have the sale
in
time for those 200 units, like down to the second?
22 minutes. They sold out in 22 minutes, and we were like, oh.
I bet you it was like 21:37, but you just you took you a second to get on the stop button.
Yeah, basically. Well, and those first that first batch took us good month or two to make.
Mm-hmm.
They were.
Yeah, we had no idea how many of them that we were going to sell, and we had designed the product to be, you do design for manufacturing and you do time studies on how long some things take. And we had an idea of how long each unit took to produce. And we're like, that's fine. We're not going to, exceed X many per month. So there was, choices that we made in the design that all of a sudden were instantly not sustainable. That feeling you get when your airplane changes altitude really suddenly and you feel light in your seat and your stomach moves up into your chest?
Oh yes.
Like the instant that the roller coaster drops away from you. At minute 25 after the launch, I couldn't see the ground underneath my feet, and it was the first 20 minutes were like incredible. Like, wow, this is really exciting. Oh no, this is actually an emergency. and the excitement lasted for about 3 minutes before the scope of the emergency dawned on me. And then it proceeded to continue to be that level of emergency for about 8 months.
Yeah, that was rough. And the weirdest thing for me about the launch was, so we were watching our notifications for when orders came up, and we expected to know everybody that bought stuff from us because we have a core group of customers and friends, and we thought, we'll probably know everyone that's going to order one of these.
Right. We'll have met them at a class or at a trade show, or have mutual friends, or we're in the such and such alumni group for some instructor or training program, and we're used to recognizing we're never more than 2 or 3 degrees away from a customer.
Yeah. So when we saw those orders start rolling in, and I was like, I have no idea who this is. How did they even find out about us? I don't know. And it was the weirdest feeling of oh, this is a lot bigger than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So we could, up to that point, we could have really only projected sales based on previous data, right? And so we looked at the entire previous year's worth of, for example, something like the floodlight holster, which is one of our most popular selling products. And we had an idea of how many of those that we sold over the course of a year. And it never would have occurred to us to estimate that the most opaque, complicated, weird-looking, unusual product we've ever made would outsell on its own the entire total gross previous year's sales of all other products combined. On one hand, you can frame it as like these are good problems to have. However, all of these problems are indistinguishable from actual crises, right? So being out of stock is not a good position to be in, because if you've got no inventory, then you have no cash flow, right? This is something that we worried about during the pandemic back in 2020, where all of a sudden the panic buying hit and then shelves go to zero. And then you have to restock everything. And it's like, wow, you sold out of everything. Like, yes, but now there's zero cash flow in between resupplies. And that's a problem all of its own, right? And then, for example, in the situation that we developed with the Enigma was that anytime it goes out of stock, you develop latent demand. That is, you've got the demand that you know about, right? All the people who sign up for the wait list. And then there's an amount of demand that you're unaware of that still exists. Mm-hmm. And we would run out, put in a purchase order for more, and, structure it so that, we'd say, okay, we want to have this many made over the next 2 months. Just deliver them as quickly as you can, whenever X many are ready. And every time you resupply, you sell out instantaneously, and then the unsatisfied demand grows. So we were running a wait list for the Enigma, where you could sign up for the wait list, and then as soon as they stock in, the people on the list get notified in the order that they signed up in batches, which we thought was a pretty good program. So it prevents a bum rush on the website and crashing the site, and it allows drops of inventory to last more than 20 minutes. So, we were pretty thrilled when we were able to make 500 or 1,000 Enigmas in a week, and then it would take 10 calm hours for them to sell out. We'd stock them in at 6 p.m. and they'd be out of stock at some point early in the morning, because the wait list would only notify, a couple people every half hour. Now, the problem that we encountered was that as we scaled and increased the number we were able to produce, we redid some of the design work so we could save time in the manufacturing and make it more efficient. The crew who was manufacturing them for us scaled and subbed some stuff out to other sew shops. So, for example, like leg leashes would get made at a subcontractor for them, so we could scale capacity that way. The size of the wait list grew faster than we could scale the physical production of it. And that was a scary place to be in, because it made it difficult to project quantities. It made it harder to manage delivery timeframes. And it also made a lot of people really upset. So, it's a good problem to have. You sell every single one of these that you make. Well, when you've got a couple thousand people who are not happy about not being able to get one, that is a brand crisis. That is a major problem.
Yeah, we've actually had people accuse us of building hype on purpose to try to make our product sound cooler than it is. And we're like, no, we were actually desperately trying to make enough of these, and we are still dealing with some of the after effects and some of the negative opinions people have due to that. So it was a legit crisis, and it really sucked. It sucked. It definitely sucks to be a person who misses the drop. I've been there, and it's not fun. But it really sucks to be the business owner who has to deal with the reputation hit and the customer dissatisfaction from people who miss the drop. It is not cool.
Yeah, there was a period of time where people who have significant audiences were buying Enigmas and then emailing us or DMing us to tell us how much they like them, and which is fantastic. And my immediate response would be, please don't tell anyone that you have this. Please don't tell everyone how great it is. Please keep this to yourself. If I know you want to talk about it and I know you want to share this, but please give us 6 weeks before you post about this so we can make sure that we're like at least gaining some ground on the wait list. Like, we're not manufacturing AstroTurf hype around the product. We were for months desperately trying to dissuade influencers and people with audiences from talking about it so we could get our legs underneath us. Like, that is such people who I would have been absolutely thrilled to get a recommendation and exposure from at any previous point. I was begging them to wait. Like, can you wait 6 weeks before you post a picture of this anywhere on social media? Because, like, if 1% of your followers decide to get on our wait list, it will cripple us permanently. And so, like, that was kind of like the hurricane that we were in for a while. And, that on top of the fact that we had designed the product for that crew of people who we essentially know by name. And a lot of customers identified the capability as something that they wanted and purchased the product. And it then became our responsibility to catch them up on how to put it into practice as best as possible. So for a little while...
What John's trying to say, so when we say that we designed this product for a small group of people, our original customer base is all folks who are generally like very experienced carriers. A lot of them are professional users, carry for work. And they're all people who have the background to immediately take a product like this and put it into practice without any real help. And so that's who we made it for. And it's kind of like unapologetically complicated. And that's awesome. It's the reason it works so well. But also, like, once you get past that group and then you get to, like, the group of friends of the person who really has a handle on how it works. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. You got amazing results. I want to get that too. And then when they come to the brand, they just come to it with a little bit less background. So the problem we encountered then is that we didn't have enough educational resources for those people. And it was something that we never had to think about before. So we were on the back foot. We designed this product to attach through a Modwing or a Darkwing. And all of our customers had those holsters already and were familiar with how the wings worked. And suddenly we were dealing with people who would come to us and they're like, okay, I got the Enigma. Now, what kind of holster do I need? What's a wing? And we're like, oh my gosh, how do we explain this? It's one of those things like trying to explain how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, oh yeah, make a sandwich. It's easy, right? But no, when you actually break it down and you're like, okay, first, you're going to need some bread. You got to go to the store and get some bread. Then you got to take the bread out of the package, set it down. You need a knife. You need a jar of jelly. You need a jar of peanut butter. And then what you do is you take the peanut butter out, you spread it on the bread.
How hard do I spread it on the bread?
Not too hard.
I'm just tearing up this bread.
Yep. If you go too hard, you're going to spread through the bread and you'll tear the bread. But if it's not hard enough, the peanut butter won't stick. So, like, before you know it, it starts to get incredibly complicated when you really start to, like, break down and explain all the basic fundamental skills behind getting good concealment. And that's the part where we ended up starting to get stuck. So we moved directly from one crisis to another. Yeah. So we moved from the crisis of we can't make enough of these to the crisis of we can't catch people up fast enough.
Yeah, I mean, I describe it kind of like imagine all of a sudden 300% more people show up at your Porsche dealership and you need to teach them all how to drive stick in the parking lot after they've bought the car already. And they know they want it fast. They want they want those features. They want to go fast. They like everything about it. What's this third pedal do? And they've already paid you for it. Mm-hmm. Now you need to develop a program on the fly that does pre and post purchase support to make sure that people know exactly what they're getting beyond the short checklist of capability that they've selected, and then teach them to use it immediately.
Yep. And if you don't do a good enough job of that, then you get a ton of bad reviews at your dealership. Like, I bought a Porsche from these guys and it sucks. It won't even move.
Yeah, it doesn't go fast. It just makes this bad smell.
Yeah. Yeah. So like we went from a production crisis to an education crisis. And we really haven't had a break yet. I think we're getting hopefully close.
However, we are solving all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been kind of evolving. So we started out with basic instructions that were written to the level of our typical customer. And immediately we're like, well, this isn't working. And so we immediately started making more and more resources, getting deeper and deeper into not just how to assemble the product, but a lot of deeper stuff too. Like, how do you actually get a gun to conceal? What are the factors that affect concealment? Like, what are the physics principles that make a gun conceal on the body and be comfortable? And a lot of this stuff is stuff that people like John have known, and even people who have carried for, say you've been carrying for a decade. A lot of this stuff is stuff you just intuitively learn, and you know it over the years that you've been carrying. But what we had to do was come up with a way to kind of make it more digestible. So somebody that's just coming into this and just got their carry permit can go out and have the same amount of success as someone who's been carrying for 10 years.
Right. So one of the things that we did up front was, in order to help catch everyone up in terms of techniques and applications, as we started a Facebook group called the PHLster Concealment Workshop. And some of that was based on community-based tech support that I had seen from using other products. Like, you buy a printer or some other thing, and you're like, oh, well, or like a 3D printer or something, and you're like, you go to the company's tech support page, and there's a forum where you interact with other users and maybe one or two people from the company in order to help answer all of your questions and get through some of this stuff, right? And I said, okay, we're going to do that. I've got a group I've got a Facebook group that's got about 1,000, maybe 1,500 people in it, who are all the people we initially expect, the earliest adopters, the people who we expected to have the most interaction with the product. And I changed the name of the group, and we started inviting all of the new Enigma customers into it. And that has been fantastic, because it allows people of all different experience levels to seek help and get help and offer help to each other. And it also created a resource for us where we could better track the kinds of challenges that new concealed carriers are having currently, because it's been a while since we as a brand were in touch with new concealed carriers. Most of the people who arrived at PHLster over the past number of years have taken a path to get here, and across, over that path, they've gathered experience and osmosed, best practices from their peers in order to arrive at this destination. But there are a lot of people who are shortcutting that path and arriving here. So how do we get them all the information they need? How do we distill these concepts down into bite-sized pieces of information? And how do we make those bites smaller? And how do we make them taste better? And how do we take the ideas that we've been talking about for years to make complicated holsters and turn them into things that are intuitively obvious? And so we've been collecting a lot of information from the group and distilling that process, because, it's one thing to help someone conceal a gun when they're standing right next to you and you can kind of push the gun around and show them stuff and talk to them in real time, but it becomes very difficult to transmit that through a paragraph of text. So we've been looking at this a lot more like it is an educational company that also offers a selection of tools to help people put that education into practice. And that's been part of what's helping us scale. So we've been refining the efficiency of the delivery of the educational information in a pre and post purchase support capacity, right? Like, we're trying to get this information out into the world at a scale that allows that causes people to come into contact with that information and learn it before they even know about our brand. And then they can put this information into practice with whatever gear they have, and then maybe at some point they find their way back to PHLster. And then if they've purchased a product, then we re-deliver a lot of that information through videos. We're working on an ebook based on some in-person class curriculum that we've come up with. And all the technical support they could possibly want is getting front-loaded the instant that they buy the product. So we're scaling the information delivery, and we've scaled production in the background.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, like this is one of those moments that John warned you about. It's like we sound a little burnt out because we've been just underwater with one thing or another. Either, we had a production bottleneck first, and then we had an education bottleneck, and we're resolving each of those. But I don't want to let that eclipse the fact that we are incredibly grateful for this new opportunity in not just the industry, but in the culture. And one of the things that happened was, we launched a product you could wear in your pajamas at the beginning of a pandemic. Like that timing couldn't have been better. And the number of people who have gotten into concealed carry just due to world events is huge. It's amazing. I think this is one of the things that's going to hopefully be a sea change in Second Amendment politics. I'm really interested to see how this affects things. But the main point here is that we think it's awesome that there are new people involved in concealed carry. Mm-hmm. And not just new people, but people who maybe have carried before, but are taking it up a notch. And they want to improve their level of concealment, maybe carry a bigger gun or make things a little more difficult. And these are the people who are now finding our brand. And I feel like we have a responsibility to them. Not just like, oh yeah, we sold you a product, but as a community, the Second Amendment community has always been a pay it forward community where you start out, maybe somebody mentors you, maybe you learn here or there from different people. And then when you come of age, it's your turn to pass that along to the next person. And so I feel kind of a community responsibility in addition to just like, yeah, I want to make sure people are happy with the product. So this has been an amazing opportunity to just kind of expand our voice in the community and help people do these things better and safer.
Yeah. One of the things that's happening is that, some number of people who are arriving at this brand don't know that we have been around for 10 years and that 10 years has been spent, involved in, the shooting world. We go to a lot of classes and we stay up to date, and, we're involved with, like Rangemaster and ShivWorks and a whole bunch of other really fantastic, instructors and the communities that surround that education. And some people are arriving not knowing that there's a long tail at the end of this thing, or that there's a world from which this product comes from. It hasn't sprung out of a vacuum, and we're not a new company. We have been small because the community that we come from isn't huge, right? And we come from there, and we cater to that. And now there are a whole bunch of new people here. So we are kind of like all of a sudden in a wider mouth of the funnel than we were before. And it's our responsibility to take these new people and move them into the narrower end and show them where these concepts and priorities and requirements and values come from. And so we're hoping that one of the things that we can do is take this new position and funnel people into the incredible community and world of education that has informed our brand for the past decade, instead of letting people flounder in the world of like, Serpa holsters and what's a shot timer, right? We want to kickstart people into the incredible place that we know the training and gun culture is.
Have we talked your ear off yet?
Oh, I mean, this is awesome. This is all good. And so just as a final step, so how are you guys doing with supply chain? Has the wait list shrunk? Is the wait list gone?
We are at a zero wait list, 100% in stock all the time situation right now. We've been that way since November or December. We've had a couple little hiccups with a couple accessories here and there, but however, so the Enigma Express helped a lot. The workshop that makes our holsters invested in laser cutting and sewing technology so that the entire system can get manufactured and assembled at the shop that makes the holsters. We have added another vendor for the standard and light bearing Enigmas, as well as increased the manufacturing capacity for things like the sport belt. So now we are stable on inventory on a continual basis.
Oh, that's that is awesome. And so how is PHLster different now than when you launched? I think you said 14 months ago as a company.
Boy, we've been actually kind of struggling with that. Like, where is our what is our brand identity now? Like, we were a small company for the high. Trying to say it, think of the best way to say this, but we were a small company for the people with the highest of expectations and the highest of performance needs. And we have become much more mainstream, but we still make products that are for those high-end people. So it's like, well, how do we kind of reconcile that? And really what we're doing is trying to level up our customers. Like, you don't have to come into this as, like a high-tech operator. But you're going to find as much information as you need to get you to where you want to go. So, like, I guess as a brand, the really tricky part is, like, how do you preserve that reputation when your customer base grows? So it's tricky.
Yeah, so to go back to the everyone needs to learn how to drive stick shift,
right?
In the parking lot analogy, the thing that we're trying not to do is go, well, let's just make a minivan that appeals to all of these people the same way. Let's make something that looks like what they want, but is easier or less exciting or not as fast. Instead, what we're trying to do is ensure that anyone who has interest in that vehicle learns what stick shift is and why they want it before they arrive at the dealership. Mm-hmm. So even if they don't know how to drive stick at the time of purchase, they know what they're getting into and they have some idea of why it's going to function that way. So we're not going to
we're not dumbing anything down.
Right. No, so like the complex part is like, how do you grow without diluting? Right. That's the challenge. We've been making high tech, forward thinking gear for a long time. And the problem then becomes the demographic for that is small. As your demographic grows, what do? Do you change the products that you make in order to meet the market that you find yourself in? Or can you do things like maybe transform the nature of the market that you find yourself in? And that's hard. So like one of the things that we're struggling with is that, sudden and explosive growth. Like 2 years ago, I knew exactly where PHLster was on, the map, in air quotes. And then this happens and, all of a sudden in a blink of an eye, we're in on new terrain that is largely surrounded by fog and we can't get any kind of bird's eye view on it. So it's hard to suss out exactly where we're positioned relative to the marketplace. And it's also, as a smaller brand who was familiar with our customers on a largely, first name or at least recognize your face basis, we had some kind of reality check and some way of orienting ourselves. Now that's a different challenge. So whether or not we are conceptualizing these challenges correctly is a little fuzzier. And whether or not they're going to have an effect is a little fuzzier, because the things that we're trying to do aren't really typical, right? At this stage, what we should do, now that we've got sustainable inventory quantities and the ability to scale, even if that grows, is we should just start advertising. We should do a big spend on Facebook ads. We should put pages in every magazine and then drive new customers here. However, you can't do that without the prerequisite basis of knowledge and managing expectations.
How much advertising did we do before that?
0?
Yeah. I just want to point that out because I think a lot of people have the impression that we have like shills and paid influencers and a bunch of people that are like out there advertising our brand, but we don't. We had the opposite of that.
Right. So we're here as a result of word of mouth. So what can we do with word of mouth that will grow organically and not funnel people into something that they might not be ready for? Now, the first answer, the obvious answer is make something that people are ready for. Like come out with something that is, really digestible. Let's make a whole bunch of hybrid holsters. And now that we've got this exposure and some amount of market capture, we could, if all we cared about was money, we could release a hybrid holster of some variety and sell thousands of them. Or what we can do is we can play a much longer term game where we increase the amount of available information about concealed carry, deliver it effectively to the people who need it the most in a way that is demonstrable, and then change their expectations of concealed carry such that they learn to prefer the features and functionality that we offer.
Yeah, and that's so like, from my point of view, I've focused more on the women's side of things because, I am one and I hang out in a lot of groups where women hang out. So it's very clear to me that if we wanted to just rake in dollars, all we would need to do is put out some sort of like belly band that performs slightly better than the other belly bands on the market, which would be super easy to do. However, screw that. Can I swear on here? Is that allowed?
I'll bleep it, but absolutely.
But honestly, so like the products on most of the products in the women's market, and I own a large sampling of them, so I can speak with authority on this. Most of the products on the women's market are unapologetic trash. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly frustrating to me as somebody who actually cares about things like trigger protection and concealment, and like the amount of just garbage that gets sold to people who don't know any better is high.
I mean, let me just interject and say, like, not only are they like bad holsters in the fact that they aren't concealable, they aren't comfortable, they aren't versatile, they have a lot of bad stuff, but some of these things are outright dangerous. And so you can get yourself shot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so, I was going to say, one of the things that I find the most kind of sad about a lot of the products in that space is the obvious low expectations of women that the products themselves demonstrate. Like, for example, if I, John from PHLster, said, I'm going to come out with a holster and it is going to be a spandex sleeve that you shove in your pants, I would get laughed out of the industry. However, it's entirely reasonable and normal for just spandex pants with a pocket to be called an entire holster and then marketed to women.
Yeah, it's actually offensive. I find it offensive. And not only offensive, but also predatory. So, yeah, looking at the I know exactly what to make money in the women's market, and I just refuse to do it. It's insulting. So I think as a brand, we have a very strong sense of pride in the quality of what we're making and the functionality and performance of it. And that's just something I'm just not capable of compromising on that, quite frankly. Like, after being condescended to for a decade with just garbage products, I've had my fill of that. So, yeah, I mean, really, our only option is to level up the customer base because we're not going to level down our product.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing. I had you guys on because I wanted to hear. I mean, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on your end, but boy, I think it's a really positive message.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, sure. It's a catharsis.
Yeah, hopefully we're not just. I hope I don't listen to this later. I'm like, oh my God, why did I complain so much?
Why do these people sound like they're dying?
Well, I mean, I think it's reality. It is it's a good problem to have with you buy what you think is going to be several months worth of holsters and they sell it in 22 minutes. Well, there, you got the money in your hand. Yes, but there's a whole bunch of people who don't have holsters still. And,
You're right.
or Enigmas. And so, it's tough. And I had you guys on the show and you guys were on Handgun Radio and all the links to all of that, because we didn't really talk about the Enigma all that much. And if you haven't heard about that, there'll be a whole bunch of links in the show notes where you guys can check that out, because it's far more complicated than what we can get into here. But I mean, it's such a game changing system. It's not a holster. It's not a belt. It's not a belly band. It's something completely new. And because of that, and because you guys were the people that took the chance on this, there is a certain level of risk and danger to that, but also at the same time, there's a lot of reward to it, and I'm glad you guys are seeing the reward, because you absolutely deserve it.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe we should just touch on that real quick. So this has been an absolutely incredible journey, and every single day I will go on Facebook and find a comment of somebody who is succeeding. We've got a lot of 5'2", 100-pound women that are like, I could never conceal before, and this is the first thing that actually, I can actually wear this shirt again, and that absolutely makes my day, and we are so grateful for that. So it's not all doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. There's so much satisfaction in being able to positively change people's lives. We're so grateful for that, and I don't want to sound like we're too focused on the negative. We're just focused on getting by every day, and we keep saying okay, when things settle down, we're gonna take a vacation.
I think the last time Sarah said, okay, so when things settle down, I wound up laughing until I couldn't breathe and curled up on the floor before she could finish her sentence. So yeah, I mean, it's really amazing. So having been around for 10 years, I've seen a lot of businesses come and go, and almost all of them fail to scale instead of failing to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So the instant that this happened to us, I got flashes back of every other company that I've seen go out of business, where they take a whole bunch of pre-orders or a whole bunch of back orders, and they can't allocate the funds correctly, and then all the back orders that they have don't cover all the new inventory, and then they have production problems while they're holding on to everyone else's money. And I've seen half a dozen to a dozen companies die in the space of 6 months to a year because the process of scaling killed them. So my first reaction to encountering this problem was, I just felt the Grim Reaper tapping me on the shoulder of hey buddy, it's your time. Right. And so I'm like, oh God, is this going to be us? Okay. Let me see if I can remember all the lessons that I thought I learned from watching this come and go and stick to them. I know we made a lot of people really unhappy that we didn't take their money or allow them to pre-order. And I know that not having enough units was frustrating, but we did that as part of all the lessons that we learned from watching. We learned to swim in some ways by watching a lot of people drown over the years, and having our feet on the shore, knowing that what we learned was correct, and having stuck to our guns about it, and having stuck it out and put those lessons into practice was extremely satisfying. Now I'm still a little shaky because we swam 800 yards through the sharks to get here, but it's pretty amazing. And the fact that people stuck with us through that is unbelievable. And the fact that they're sustaining members of the community that we've put together, we've got, I think we're pushing 16,000 people in the PHLster Concealment Workshop, which is unbelievable. And they're all happy to be here and helping each other. That's a group on Facebook that has, I think we might be up to 30% women in a gun related Facebook group, which is
that's unheard of.
and another thing that I'm really proud of, because it's hard to get mixed gender gun related groups to work on Facebook. So that's working out really well. It's a place where you could send your, Aunt Judy to get advice on concealed carry without her getting
sugar
posted by trolls, which is
Right.
like, that's, I'm extremely proud of that too. And like the fact that we haven't diluted the product or
just the fact
Yeah.
that people are there and they
Yeah.
care about it. That I'm awed by the fact that people care about this product enough to volunteer their time to help other people and say, hey, here's what worked for me. If you have a similar body type, try this. And like the community there is incredible. And it's all people who are just like genuinely helping each other. And that's kind of one of those things that restores my faith in humanity just a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm so incredibly grateful. And it's also really cool to see the other kinds of opportunities reveal themselves. Like, we're not talking about like, oh, great, now we can, make this new product and sell to this captive audience. Well, the opportunity that I'm actually the most excited about right now is finishing up the ebook that we're working on. We had run a class called Concealment Tune-Up at Active Self-Protection National Conference. We were invited to a Girl and a Gun, and we ran the class there. We're teaching it at Rangemaster later this month, and we have put together a ebook based on the curriculum of teaching people how concealment works, and having the opportunity to put that together, get it really well done, and then release it to an audience of this size for free and dump that much information into the water supply is really cool. Really cool. That's like, it's all the stuff that we've wished people knew about holsters and concealed carry for years, and getting to a position where we can finally disseminate that amount of information, that amount of helpful information at scale to this many people is probably cooler to me than actually making the Enigma.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I've always been kind of like a nerd who just hangs out too much in Facebook groups. Like I've been in these women's groups for like a long time and just helping people with random stuff because it just feels good to help people. And so like the ability to help people on this scale is amazing. Yeah, we're just super lucky. So yeah, hopefully that's not too, I mean, I don't want to be too doom and gloom about everything, but there's a lot of positive aspects of it too that we try to remember when we're not too focused on the day to day.
Yeah. Well, that is so awesome, and I'm really glad I had you guys on to tell your story, because it's a good one. And so I'd like to thank you guys both, Sarah and John of PHLster Holsters. Thank you guys so much for coming on the Assorted Calibers podcast.
Thanks for having us, Tom.
Thank you.
So that was a really, really long interview, and I don't know if I remember much of it. I will say that both of them sound spectacularly fried.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to not really ask, because I know the meaning, but I have to bring it at the very end. John says, "Thanks for having us, Tom," and your name isn't Tom. I mean, it's not even Weer'd actually, but that's not your legal name.
Nope. I signed up for Facebook under duress from Ryan Machad of Handgun Radio. He wanted me to be able to be on the discussion group there, and so I just said, well, fine, I will sign up like I'm signing into a cheap hotel under an assumed name, and the assumed name that I always wanted to use was Thomas Collins, because Tom Collins is a delightful drink, and And yeah, and Sarah and John know me as Weer'd, and then we communicate through Facebook, and so they always see Thomas Collins is sending you a message.
So do they think that's your real legal name?
I have no idea. I do intend to bring it up because it surprised me the first time it happened, and I'm like, wait, why are they saying? Oh yeah, that does make sense. I think I got introduced at the Concealed Carry fashion show. It was with one of those like, what should I call you? Because I was sitting there with a badge with my real name on it, but I run a podcast under the name Weer'd, but they know that I'm also Tom Collins on Facebook. And what do I call you? Call me whatever you want. Call me the pretty princess at the ball. But either way, yeah, I know that segment went way longer than normal, but oh geez, it was. I found it to be such a feel good story in both they came up with a great idea, and of course we didn't really talk about what the Enigma is. It's essentially it's a shoulder holster for your waist is how I like to see it.
Specifically for appendix carry.
Yes. Specifically for appendix carry, and specifically designed to work under pretty much any clothes. I mean, we have a friend who likes to wear it under a bathrobe, and you can wear it under gym shorts. You can wear it under jeans. You can wear it under a suit, and it fits, and it's adjustable enough that for females with curves and things like that, it works exceptionally well from all of everything that I've heard. And number one, they managed to do it. They managed to meet the demand because, as they said, they ordered what they thought was a fairly robust supply of these systems before they went live, and then they disappeared in a matter of minutes. And they've gone from that and having that huge back order to now you can just go on their website, and the link's in the show notes, and order one for yourself. You can certainly look them over as well. And then also all of the work that they're doing right now to educate people, not just on how to use their holster system, but just concealed carry in general, which I gotta say that's super interesting. We may have to dive into that a little bit more, just because I like the more of the theory of concealed carry.
Well, congratulations to John and Sarah, and I sincerely hope you're able to sleep soon.
Sleep is for the weak.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Exactly. But Erin, do you know who's not weak?
Our patrons.
That's right. I mean, all of our listeners are strong. They're strong of mind and they're strong of body, and they're pretty good looking. But the supporters on Patreon, they're really good looking. Thank you so much to all our supporters on Patreon. Thank you to all of our listeners. And if you're not a supporter on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. That way you can get an early release of the podcast, but there's also bonus content. We've got blooper reels. We have the ACP film track, as Erin says. You get to hear people like Oddball and David and Xander and me ruin perfectly good movies by talking over them. And we have the ACP Mag Dump, which is our bonus show.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Podkicker or whichever one of those umpty dozen platforms there are. I can't keep track of them. I don't know. But rate us. Rate us good. Rate us good and hard. Subscribe to us on that platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off. Like Weer'd likes to say, share the blooper reel with them. Just give them that free taste. Get them hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you happen to know someone who's a Patreon patron, say, hey, can I get a taste of one of those blooper reels? Can I listen to a mag dump with you? And make it a social thing. They're hilarious. You'll like it.
It'll be a listen party.
Exactly. And of course, you can get more from me at my blog, which is weirdworld.com, and I am also on Handgun Radio, which is on the Firearms Radio Network.
I am all over the usual places, but I don't have like super duper earth-shaking news coming up, but I've got some cool things that I'm gonna reveal on BlazingSword.org and PinkPistols.org. So keep an eye on those.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our lovely music.
So Weer'd, you were talking about how our patrons are strong. And, well, I am strong of snark and cuteness. And you are strong of ass. Our strengths are assorted. And so's our podcast. Strong like bull. Good night, everybody.
Good night. I'm strong smelling.